Hello, I'm Graham Pink and I'm a director of Comdronic Limited. In this short video, we're going to be showing you how you, the user, can maintain your AC6 to give it the best performance in between its annual service and calibration. We're going to be looking at the strainers and how we can maintain or change the strainers, and we're going to be looking at hose connections and how we make sure they're kept in good condition to give you easy access to and from the snap connector. The strainers are situated in the strainer housings, which are behind the red plus and the blue minus strainer housing labels. They are there to collect small particles of debris to stop those building up around the sensor and therefore affecting the performance of the sensor. So maintenance of the strainers will give you better performance from the AC6. So for any units manufactured after June 2015, a strainer maintenance kit is included. 2 strainers, a removal screwdriver and a removal tool. For any units made prior to June 2015, you'll need standard spanners and a screwdriver. So to remove one of the strainers, we'll take the strainer removal tool, simply put it over the hex and unscrew the snap connector. Now it's important at this stage that when we remove the snap connector, we don't lose the little black O-ring. The O-ring is going to be reused, so keep it safe. If we now look down the strainer housing, we can see the top of the strainer quite clearly, and we can remove that using the screwdriver bit supplied. We simply change that from the screwdriver tool that we use to take the screws to change the battery. That can now be easily unscrewed. And we're looking now to make sure that there's no excess amount of debris in the strainer. We expect it to collect debris, but we don't want it to be completely clogged with debris. And once we've removed the strainer, we can inspect it and have a look at the condition. Now this particular strainer is quite clean. It wouldn't need to be replaced. It may need a little wash in hot soapy water and a rinse through, but there's no reason why that couldn't be used again. If we look at a strainer that's come back from a maintenance job, you can see that this one is actually quite heavily caked with debris, which is hardened into the strainer and would prevent flow, so that would need to be replaced. But having cleaned this particular strainer, we can now pop it back into the strainer housing. And we're just reversing the process, screwing it back in, using the tool, and simply winding it down until it's home. It doesn't need to be very, very tight, just seated on the bottom of the strainer housing. And once it's down, we're going to replace the snap connector and the O-ring to maintain a seal. So that's with the post-June 2015 units. If we had a unit that didn't have the strainer kit in it, we'd need to use a standard spanner. So it's a 13mm spanner to take off the snap connector. Again, make sure we save the O-ring. The same process for removing the strainer. Now, if the strainer has become blocked, or if there is debris in the threads of the strainer housing, we may find there's quite a bit of resistance when we're trying to remove the strainer. In this case, we'd need to take a 14mm spanner and just put it on the flats of the strainer housing so that we don't actually move the strainer housing while we're removing the strainer. If you get to a point where it is totally seized, don't try and go any further, send it back to us for maintenance. But by holding that, you should be able to remove the strainer, clean or change, and follow the same process as we did on the other side. Another tip whilst we're looking at this procedure is that when we look down at the top of the strainer, having removed the snap connector, the current strainers have a slot for a flat-headed screwdriver. The previous design had a hex drive strainer head. It's a 5mm hex drive, and you'll find that in your kit with the AC6 you have a 5mm T-handled Allen key which you can use to remove the strainer. The second part of the maintenance procedure that you can carry out on your own AC6 units is to look after the hose connectors that go onto the snap connectors of the AC6. This unit has been returned for repair and recalibration, and we can see immediately the hoses came back, but they're actually very, very stiff to go onto the snap connectors. So you're putting a lot of strain onto the various components there, and this is quite easily remedied with a simple piece of grease. If we take one of the fittings out of the kit of parts in the AC6 toolbox, again quite stiff, and all we're going to do is take some multi-purpose grease, a little applicator, put some grease on the end of the applicator, and spread it around the balls and the spring in the connector. Press the connector back onto the fitting, backwards and forwards a few times, release, snap, and you can see immediately a huge improvement in the performance of the connectors. This should be done on all connectors on each end of the hoses and maintained on a regular basis. So we've covered the maintenance procedures for you to carry out for the strainers and the hose connectors on your unit, but if you have any problems with anything else in between your annual service and recalibration, please contact us.